It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, and we are at Barrel Amongst Brewing as always. And I'm talking to Ralph Renaud, head brewer Barrel Amongst, like I very often am. And we're talking about Greater Pumpkin by Heavy Seas, and this is our second pumpkin beer of the season. I was just talking to Ralph. I was just at my local beer spot, and there's not nearly as many pumpkin beers as there has been in the past, at least from my eye test of walking around. I was really happy that I was able to get this one because this was another one that was recommended to us last year. This is a beer that I had years ago. Had a single bottle of a bottle share, probably had a few ounces of, and really remembered enjoying it, but could not for the life of me tell you like what it tasted like or what the deal was. I knew that it was a bourbon barrel version of a pumpkin beer. I knew it was higher in ABV. It's 10%, and I always loved stuff from Heavy Seas. So, but when this was recommended, I was like, great, I'll put that on the list, and lo and behold, it came back this season. I was able to pick it up. Diving back into this beer for the first time in a very long time, I'm just getting tons of like pumpkin mix, like pumpkin mix you would get out of a can, like Libby's pumpkin pie mix in this, with really bold flavors and spices, but not overly spiced, if that makes any sense to you guys. Ralph, what are you getting here?
Yeah, so I really like it. I think the bourbon barrel definitely plays well with it. I'm assuming because, like you said, you get that bitterness, which I could also see being a slight like a tannic character from the wood, but that offsets because you also get that like those caramel notes and vanilla that you get from bourbon. So that's where I could see like with the tannin quality and that getting almost like a mixture of, like you said, pumpkin pie mix and just a hot bite. And then you do get for sure, like I wouldn't even call it, it's a little more than subtle, but you get some of that like cinnamon, clove, nutmeg type of pumpkin flavor and aroma. But again, because of that barrel, it offsets it enough where it makes like a in my opinion, like a whole beer. It's not just it that all blends together. It's not kind of stuck where it's like, oh, I'm getting this flavor and that not working together.
I would call this beer harmonious.
Yeah.
I think that there's a smoothness to it, there's a softness on the mouthfeel, and all those aspects. I mean, we talked about the hops in there that are absolutely present. We're talking about the barrel aging, which is unique. I mean, I've had other barrel-aged pumpkin beers, but I had like barrel-aged pumpkin stouts and things of that nature. I'm sure I've had another bourbon barrel-aged golden strong like this one, but I feel like this is like the perfect balance of it. It's not over the top. The barrel doesn't hit you over the head. It's just one of the aspects, one of the nuances that comes together with all the other aspects of the beer to make something really tasty. I always look into these beers, right? This beer is about 13 years old. It's been around for a while. Heavy Seas, like I mentioned, we featured some other beers from them. Loose Cannon, one of them. I remember fondly Peg Leg Imperial Stout from back in the day, which I always thought was one of the best widely available, at least down here, examples of an Imperial Stout you could get. I've looked around, I believe it's discontinued, but I was doing a little bit of research on this, looking at some scores. It's really well thought of on your Beer Advocates and on Untappd, but I saw some people saying that this beer was really hot and really overly alcoholic, and I'm not getting that at all. I feel like the alcohol here at 10% is relatively well hidden. I'm not getting burned from the barrel. I mean, am I crazy, Ralph?
No, I'm not really getting burned from the barrel. The only thing I could maybe see is if someone's confusing, like I said, that tannic quality, but that's me kind of reaching to try and figure out where they're getting that from. I think it's fantastic. Now, I can't speak maybe if someone had it on draft when it was first came out or whatever, but I think it's incredible, and it's unique in the way that, like, not that no one's ever done. Obviously, there's been other barrel-aged pumpkin beers, but like you said, they've kind of become less and less as pumpkin beers in general. And now with everything barrel-aged is an Imperial Stout, it's nice to have this almost, lighter colored kind of caramel, obviously not gonna say cream ale because that's a different style, but it's kind of that creaminess, that caramel toffee kind of flavor, to see that put into a barrel-aged package, because it's not something you see as often, short of like maybe a barley wine. But
I love it. I mean, listen, we've done our triple in bourbon barrel, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I think some of those golden strong ales, things of that nature, can play really well into these flavor profiles. And I do think, and I think you mentioned it about the Imperial Stouts. I think people get in a box and they don't really experiment enough with some of these things. And we've been able to put Pilsners in tequila barrels and do a bunch of different stuff. And I love when we do that, because so many of those flavors can lend itself to other things, and we don't have to have such a narrow focus on it. So I give these guys a lot of credit for putting this beer together, for balancing it as well as they have. I really wish we saw more stuff from Heavy Seas down here. I've been a big fan of the brewery for a long time. I believe they used to be known as Clipper City Brewing, and then the Heavy Seas was kind of a offshoot line, and then they kind of morphed their whole brewery into that. Now that could be completely off base, but that's my understanding of it. But I back in the day, we used to get a lot more stuff down here for them, and I never found one I didn't like. I always thought the Hop 3, the Loose Cannon, things of that nature were always really excellent, and this is no exception.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I was always a fan of all their hoppy stuff and the loose cannon variants they would have. So it's actually nice seeing this, because I'm pretty sure I've even had the Peg Leg Stout you were talking about and this and that, but they had, or at least when I was trying their stuff, they had so much hoppy stuff that took a lot of my focus. So I'm glad you brought this beer so I can try some of the other stuff they do, because they do it well. They have a very well-rounded portfolio.
Absolutely, and we have to thank you guys. We get suggestions all the time. Once again, this was a suggestion from a year ago. I was finally able to get my hands on it and feature it for Old Favorite Friday. This is October, so we're drink a couple pumpkin beers. We're gonna drink some Oktoberfest. It's a great time of year for us, and I love when I feel like the pumpkin style is a little overdone. And every brewery has one. Not everyone is necessarily very good, and we do our best to really feature these really great examples of them. And we saw this with a pumpkin lager a few weeks ago that was just kind of perfect and light and refreshing. And now we go with something that's kind of more over the top and bigger, but still really, really well balanced. And it shows you can do it either way. You can go big, bold, put it in a bourbon barrel, make it 10%, and it can be great. And you can go light and refreshing and do the same thing. So we appreciate you guys checking this out. Please poke around our YouTube channel, find other conversations that Ralph and I are having about incredible great beers. Leave us a comment, tell us what we should be drinking next week for Old Favorite Friday. We'd really appreciate it, and then we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.